Here we have our crude imports and exports dashboard from the US. We'll begin with the market synopsis page on the left-hand side, showing a variety of information on IMO 2020. This is the move from high sulfur fuel oil to 0.5% sulfur fuel levels. This provides important information to know, the benefits and actions surrounding it, and lastly, recent news on the topic, such as the coronavirus's impact on it. On the right-hand side, we have our monthly news regarding crude imports and exports, with the coronavirus, of course, being a major topic, as it has heavily impacted the market over the course of 2020, with crude even being at, I believe, around $18.50 today. And lastly, we have an outlook on fuel production and consumption done by the EIA, as well as the stock build or draw that has and will occur based on projections. On our next page, we have recent data on oil and LNG export facilities in the US, showing how there is a large increase in the number that should be operable in the future as the crude market hopefully recovers, with most having target dates for when the facility will be ready and operational. We also have below the crude export capacity and the expected amount of crude that will be exported out of these terminals compared to imports and production for facilities either in the works or already operating. This helps show we have gotten to a capacity of roughly 5 million barrels a day and how we have planned to reach close to 12 million barrels a day by 2022. This, of course, may change as a result of crude prices and the coronavirus, so we will need to continuously look for up-to-date information. For our crude imports and processing facilities page, we can take a deep dive into how the crude was moving and what type it was in regards to pads 1, 3, and 5. For example, if we were to look at pad 3, this was an important part of crude moving from Venezuela, so we can take a look at heavy sours in particular. Here we can see Venezuela was not the only country we were importing from in regard to it, but it was one of the largest for heavy sours. So we can click on Venezuela itself, or any country for that matter. And this will then show us what cities are taking said crude. And for even greater detail, we can even see what companies' facilities are processing the heavy sour, such as Houston and Pascagoula. There we go. With 5 different companies, including Chevron, which was the last company operating in the country. We can continue this in our next page, where we can see what percentage of the heavy sour was processed by what company. Again, also showing that cities and companies that process it for clarity. This can help us understand how much crude from Venezuela was replaced based on the company. So if we wanted to specifically look at Chevron again, as well as Citgo, we'll be provided all the data we need. On our next page, we can take a deeper look into the importing companies themselves and where they were getting their crude. Again, we can look at Chevron in respect to Venezuela and heavy sour crude, showing which city it was sent to, and even giving us idea of what crude replaced it. As we can see, here we go. There it goes. As we can see, heavy sour crude from Mexico going into the same cities and company facilities as Venezuela crude had previously. If we just highlight this, and there we go. Since the data we were looking at was from the EIA and behind by a few months, we can also look at another source for new data utilizing Clipper data. This will give us the option to look at all the different grades of crude and where it was loaded and by what vessel. So if we were specifically to look at pad 3 and the different grades of heavy sour, we can select recent data. There we go, yes. On Mexico, and see all of the different company facilities that are taking the crude and how much is being taken. This, of course, can be done for any of these companies and countries that we want to take a look at, so it should be very useful. Now that we've shown imports, we can take a look at exports and the pad regions they are coming from. There we go. We will, for example, look at Europe a little more closely. So we can click these buttons. And this will give us the offtake ports the crude is being exported from, and even being able to see what offtake ports and facilities are responsible for what percentage. So if we wanted to do the 3 export facilities or ports, and then the facilities, we can see the actual percentage behind the exported crude. Last week we have our content pages showing the EIA crude imports visualization of crude to the US, which is interactive. We have oil price intel, giving us the latest news and prices on crude in the EIA, imports by country webpage, the last one, which we use to help build our visualizations. That should be everything in regard to the dashboard. Thank you for your time.